Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you have a child in your life, or even if you just care for one, you already know they're basically like little sponges, right? Just constantly soaking up the world around them. But have you ever stopped to actually think about what's physically fueling that rapidly growing mind? Well, today, we're going to explore the absolute best, highly researched superfoods for cognitive development. And we're not just talking about general, eat your veggies health here. We're talking about the highly specific nutrients that literally build a child's brain structure, enhance their memory, and can actually boost their academic performance down the line. It's a truly fascinating topic, so let's jump right in. Okay, let's start with a number that really puts this whole thing into perspective. 80%. By the time a child hits just 2 years old, their brain has already reached 80% of its adult weight. The sheer massive volume of neural growth happening in a baby and a toddler is just staggering. And what exactly fuels that absolute peak period of growth? Nutrition. The stakes for early childhood development are incredibly high here because missing out on the right nutrients during this specific window can measurably affect memory, attention, and cognitive ability much later in life.
I think this quote really hits the nail on the head. As Harvard Health puts it, this early development is exactly like scaffolding. Nerves are constantly growing, making new connections, getting wrapped up in myelin. And food? Food is the ultimate building material for this high-stakes construction project. The nutrients you put into a child's body are physically being used to construct the sensory systems, the processing speeds, and even the impulse control that they're going to rely on for decades to come.
So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll look at eggs, the choline champion. Second, seafood and berries, our brain protectors. Third, greens and yogurt as growth fuel. And finally, number 4, making brain food kid-friendly. All right, let's get into Section 1. Eggs, the choline champion.
You might just view the humble egg as a basic, quick breakfast staple, but its absolute secret weapon is a nutrient called choline. The brain uses choline to create acetylcholine. That's a neurotransmitter that is absolutely fundamental to memory formation and learning. The research shows that adding choline to a child's diet during the first 1,000 days of life actively supports structural brain development and seriously protects against nerve cell damage. It's essentially the vital insulation and the wiring for a healthy nervous system, and it's all just hiding inside a simple little shell.
And data from maternal and child nutrition studies reveals just how incredibly powerful this really is. To put this into perspective, if you look at the daily needs of a breastfed infant between 7 and 12 months old, a single standard 50-gram egg provides a massive 98% of their adequate intake for choline, plus 88% of their daily needs for vitamin B12. I mean, wow, it's a highly bioavailable, perfectly packaged delivery system for exactly what a growing brain is craving.
Moving right along to Section 2. Seafood and berries, brain protectors.
So, moving on from actually building the brain, let's talk about how we protect it and optimize its output. The absolutely crucial point to remember here is that the human brain is composed of roughly 60% fat, so to function optimally, it desperately needs high-quality fats. Specifically, we're talking about omega-3 fatty acids, like DHA and EPA, which you'll find abundantly in seafood. These fats act as critical protective fuel. They literally increase the plasticity of the synaptic system, which basically just means brain cells can communicate a whole lot better. In fact, multiple studies have directly linked eating fish rich in omega-3s with higher IQ scores and improved school performance in kids. That's a real game changer.
Now, I know exactly what you're probably thinking. What about mercury? It's a very practical, very real concern for parents. Too much of this heavy metal pollutant can actually harm a developing nervous system, so you definitely want to steer clear of high mercury fish, like swordfish. But there are some fantastic kid-friendly options out there that are totally safe and low in mercury. Salmon, shrimp, cod, herring, and trout. These are all incredibly safe bets that deliver those essential omega-3s without the heavy metal risks.
Okay, our second brain protector is the berry family. Berries are just absolutely packed with these antioxidant plant compounds called anthocyanins. And what these compounds do inside the body is truly remarkable. They increase blood flow to the brain, they fight off inflammation, and they actually promote the production of brand new nerve cells. And the studies on this have shown incredible results. In one study, kids who drank a blueberry beverage high in these compounds performed significantly better on a word recall test than the kids who didn't. So they're literally giving memory a measurable scientific boost.
All right, let's dive into Section 3. Greens and yogurt, growth fuel.
So if eggs build the structure, and seafood and berries protect it, leafy greens and dairy act as the ongoing growth fuel. Maintaining an adequate diet full of folate from greens and iodine from yogurt directly leads to better cognitive scores. But a diet deficient in these nutrients, and we should include iron here too, carries some really severe risks. Even a mild iodine deficiency can negatively affect a child's ability to reason, and low iron is linked directly to learning difficulties and attention deficit disorders. You really don't want to mess around with that.
And here's something super fascinating. Leafy greens actually target the brain through a visual pathway. Greens like spinach and kale are packed with carotenoids, like lutein. When you eat them, these specific pigments actually accumulate right in a part of the eye called the retina. Scientists can literally measure this accumulation. It's a metric called macular pigment optical density, or MPOD. And the research shows that higher MPOD levels are positively directly linked to much sharper cognitive functioning and faster visual processing in kids.
And then, of course, there's yogurt. Beyond just providing that absolutely crucial iodine we talked about a minute ago, unsweetened yogurt fuels what we call the gut-brain axis. Think of it like a two-way street. There's this constant bidirectional communication happening between a child's digestive system and their brain. By introducing the healthy probiotic bacteria found in yogurt, you balance their gut microbiota. And a balanced gut ferments products that stimulate energy, regulate the immune response, and actually help control mood and emotional behavior by influencing the central nervous system. It's all connected. Which brings us nicely to Section 4, making brain food kid-friendly.
Okay, so the science is absolutely crystal clear on eggs, fish, berries, greens, and yogurt. But we all know the true kryptonite of parenting is picky eating, right? Knowing what a kid should eat and actually getting them to swallow it, well, those are two very different things. The trick here is seamless integration. You kind of have to disguise these brain builders into everyday favorites. You can layer unsweetened yogurt with berries to make a fun, sweet breakfast parfait, or blend a handful of spinach into a sweet fruit smoothie and call it a green monster. Actually, scratch the usual tuna sandwich and swap it for a low-mercury salmon salad. Or get the kids involved by letting them completely customize their own baked egg and veggie muffins. Just remember, repeated exposure is the key here, so keep offering them.
So, the absolutely crucial point to take away from this explainer is this. Every single time you prepare a meal, you are quite literally building the architectural scaffolding of a child's mind. From the choline in the eggs, to the omega-3s in the seafood, down to the probiotics in the yogurt. Food is the ultimate cognitive superpower. But honestly, looking at all this data, it begs a much larger question. If we can measurably alter a child's brain structure and academic potential just by tweaking their breakfast, what other untapped human potential is simply waiting out there for the right fuel? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.